Welcome back, COS supporters, and welcome to another edition of COS Live. We are expecting in just moments another hearing in the subcommittee, another hearing in Iowa. This is a subcommittee hearing by the Senate Committee on State Government. This is, of course, in consideration of our Article 5 Convention of States legislation. You're going to hear it being referred to as SJR2. And our state representative and champion in Iowa is John Willis. So welcome to this special edition, Rita. It's great to be with you. What can you tell us about what our viewers are going to see today in this subcommittee hearing that's coming up shortly?
Yeah, well, Andrew, it's great to be with you. We are just on a roll here at Convention of States in January. What a month so far. This will be a three-person subcommittee of the Iowa Senate Committee on State Government. And you mentioned our longtime champion in the Iowa House, Representative John Wills. He is our House sponsor and has been a champion for COS for a long time. On the Senate side, our Senate sponsor is Senator Schultz, who is actually the chair of the committee that we're in. And he is also on this three-person subcommittee. So it should be a great little hearing. Now, in Iowa, the subcommittee is where public testimony is taken. They do not generally take public testimony when it gets to full committee. So hopefully what we're going to see today is some great public testimony. Now, I will say, Andrew, we did get late notice of this subcommittee hearing. It wasn't scheduled until yesterday, so not a lot of time to get our ducks in a row and get people there. But I'm hopeful that we will see some Iowa supporters. We do have a lot of them. It's a great team, great movement out there. So we'll see testimony. I do believe that this subcommittee will vote today. And again, if the vote is successful, it'll go on to the full committee in the Iowa Senate. That is the State Government Committee. We're not sure yet when the hearing would be and the vote taken before the full committee. Could be next week, could be longer than that. We're not sure about that yet. So that's what we are expecting today.
Awesome. And you had said that, we've had a busy week, busy couple of weeks. So this is really exciting that we have another hearing in Iowa. And we're at 13 states, I believe, right now that have active legislation, our legislation that is working through the legislature. And it's just incredible to see how we are right out of the gates in the first month of legislative season. And we're getting all kinds of victories. We're getting all kinds of hearings. This is really exciting, Rita. What can you say about, before, because the committee hasn't begun yet, what can we say about what's going on with the other 13 states where we have active legislation going on?
Yeah, well, we've already passed the full Senate in South Dakota. We're in the House now and expecting probably our House committee hearing and floor vote next week, we think. We've also passed the full Senate in Wyoming. That was just the other day. Andrew, honestly, I lose track of the days right now.
I do too.
Was it yesterday?
It was yesterday.
Wow, it's hard to believe, really hard to keep up with all these victories. And then on Friday, we will have a committee hearing in New Hampshire. So folks will want to tune in to watch that. We expect Senator Rick Santorum to be there to give testimony. So we've got Rick Santorum, Michael Ferris, Mark Meckler, going all over the country right now to testify at committee hearings, to meet with legislators, and also just to stir up and encourage our grassroots at surge days across the country. Those are happening. We're having 2 or 3 a week. In fact, I think even today, Idaho is having its surge day, getting ready for our resolution to be introduced there. Some breaking news we shared a little earlier, a couple days ago. Again, I've lost track of time, but Connecticut introduced our resolution this year, just in the past couple of weeks. And that was a historic moment because at that point, Andrew, now all 50 states at some point or another have introduced our Convention of States application for an Article 5 convention to propose amendments on 3 topics, 3 subjects, imposing fiscal restraints on the federal government, limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and setting term limits for federal officials. That's what we're talking about. We're ready to rein in the federal government, and I think America is ready for that too, Andrew.
I couldn't agree more with you, Rita. And you know what's exciting? You listed South Dakota, Wyoming. There's a few other states where we're looking promising as well. If we pass in 2 or 3 or 4 states this year, we're going to be in the 20s, and I think that's really exciting because 19 states have already passed our resolution, and I think that's a huge success story in and of itself because we're past the halfway mark. You know, we're not just some idea anymore, and we're not just some fantasy. We are actually getting closer to having the very first Article 5 convention of states where we can talk about term limits. We could talk about amendments to the Constitution that would rein in federal spending. I mean, we're at what, $36 trillion? That
Yeah.
number is just going to grow and grow and grow because Congress is never going to restrain itself. So it's exciting to see that we could be this year somewhere in the 20s. So I'm very excited about that, and I know our grassroots are too. It's been a great couple of weeks, very exciting. I'm losing track of everything too, but
Glad I'm not the only one.
yeah,
And
you're not.
Andrew, while we wait for the subcommittee to get started, I just want to give a shout out to our grassroots across the country. Our grassroots are the engine that really drives this movement. We believe, we know that the Article 5 process starts with we, the people, the citizens making their voices heard and working with their state legislators, telling their state legislators, yes, we want you to use your constitutional authority under Article 5 to put a check on the federal government and put it back in its. In Iowa, more than 60,000 citizens have signed the Convention of States petition asking their state legislators to vote yes for Convention of States. Also, Andrew, COS Iowa has held town halls and some really impressive Capitol rallies to boost the effort there. Get attention. They've acquired the endorsements of influential Iowans, including Blaze TV's Steve Deace. He's our good friend, and Bob Vanderplatz at the Family Leader. Last year, we had successful votes in committee in Iowa, but we never got scheduled for a floor vote. So the Iowa team has continued to work hard over the interim to get further this year and push their state across the finish line for Convention of States. And again, we just got word of this subcommittee hearing yesterday. So I'm hopeful that there were some grassroots volunteers able to turn out and get there to testify for this hearing. I do expect one of our regional directors, Karen Schuster, who is an Iowan herself and was for a long time the state director. Maybe she still is a state director in a volunteer capacity for the state of Iowa. She's done great work there, established great relationships with the legislators there. And that's where it's at. It's all about the grassroots establishing these relationships with their legislators and encouraging them to use their Article 5 power.
Rita, it still looks like we're a few moments away from beginning. People are coming into the committee room. Looks like we don't have audio just quite yet. Producer G is working in the background to get that audio, but hopefully Karen will be able to join us today after the vote. It would be really great to get some analysis from her and maybe to hear just what the Iowa State team has been up to. I know that they're always hard at work. You know, we go crazy during legislative season, but our grassroots teams, they're working hard throughout the year, whether it's legislative season or whether it's the summertime. Our grassroots are out there. They're gathering petitions. Like you mentioned, Iowa's got 60,000. That's no small number.
No.
They're out there working fairs and working events, and they are spreading the movement. They are the hands and feet of Convention of States, and they are the patriots lighting brush fires of freedom in the minds of other patriots. So it's Really great to have such a dedicated grassroots team. So we're still a few moments away. Is there anything that we could be expecting? I know it's been a crazy couple of weeks, but are we expecting anything coming up? And yeah, I know we got New Hampshire on Friday, but anything coming up that we should let our grassroots know about as far as where other states are at right now?
Yeah, New Hampshire on Friday. And also a heads up, we found out today we will have another committee hearing on Monday in Kansas, the Kansas Senate. So in Kansas, we are pushing our resolution through again this year. Last year, we did pass in the Kansas legislature by simple majority vote in both chambers, but Andrew, Kansas has this weird rule in their constitution requiring a 2/3 supermajority vote in order to pass an Article 5 application. Now, that actually violates the Article 5 itself of the US Constitution, which doesn't allow additional constraints to be put on the legislatures in applying for Article 5 conventions. So there is litigation going on right now in Kansas over whether that Kansas constitutional provision is actually legal or not. In the meantime, we're pushing our Article 5 application through again, Andrew. So we've got our first committee hearing of the year there coming up on Monday. We will likely be streaming that as well. As I said, we're also expecting a South Dakota committee hearing on the House side next week. Can't confirm that for sure yet, but it'll be great if it does happen next week because our team is also having its Surge Day and rally in South Dakota next week. And Andrew, I've never been to Pierre, South Dakota. I do hope to get there sometime, but I'm told it's really difficult to get there. So it should be really exciting and impactful to see our grassroots team do their Surge Day and possibly on the same week that we have our committee hearing on the House side there. So those are a few things that are coming up. And I should mention, Andrew, that when our viewers are able to stream these committee hearings or when they watch a floor vote, I want them to know that lots and lots of work has been done in advance by our grassroots teams, emails going into
convention in order to propose amendments to the Constitution of the United States that impose fiscal restraints, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and limit the number of terms that a person may serve in Congress. At this point, do either senators have any comments?
Not at this time.
Okay.
No, I've a lot of questions, not a lot of comments at this point.
Okay. It is an issue that has been around for years. There has been momentum. There has been inertia, at least resistance. I mean, it is swung. So I made a promise last year when I was state government chair. I decided not to run it last year because we had the same set of legislators for a 2-year. Now we've had an election. We have a new population here. So I promised I would run it the first year, and here we are. I thought I'd be chair, sorry. But it's an individual thing.
Yeah.
So now it's an individual effort here.
I thought you'd be chair too.
All right, we're going to go around the room. And now in each other subcommittee room that I've been in, we have had to pass a microphone around. Is that the case again? There we go. You can go to the microphone or pass it around. I don't care which one we do. Would you like to begin and present? There we go.
I'm Karen Schuster from Ankeny, Iowa, and I'm testifying on my own behalf and on behalf of Convention of States Action in support of SJR2. Congress has had the power to propose amendments that would rein in the federal government. It hasn't, and it won't. This is a problem the framers foresaw, and the very reason they gave us a second method to propose amendments. 88% of Americans support term limits. 71% want more limitations on federal power. 68% are in favor of a resolution like SJR2, which calls for a meeting of the states to propose amendments establishing term limits, spending limits, and jurisdiction limits on the federal government. Furthermore, 59% of Americans say that they trust you, their state legislators, more than they trust their representatives in Congress. Most important to the legislators in this state house, over 56,000 Iowans have signed a petition asking you to exercise your power to protect us from the encroachment of the federal government into our daily lives. Much of the problem has been caused by U.S. Supreme Court decisions, which have expanded the power of the federal government, especially concerning the Commerce Clause and the General Welfare Clause. Our republic has historically fixed bad Supreme Court decisions with amendments. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments fixed the bad decision of the Supreme Court case in Dred Scott. The 19th Amendment fixed the bad decision saying that women did not have the right to vote. Today, you'll likely hear the 3 R's, the usual 3 R's of our opposition: the runaway, the rules, and the rewrite. They'll say that in 1787, the convention was a runaway. Therefore, a convention to propose amendments under Article 5 will also be a runaway. Not only is this a logical fallacy called a hasty generalization, but that question of the 1787 convention exceeding its power was asked and answered in the negative by Federalist 40. Our opponents will also say that an Article 5 is too vague. There are no rules for the convention, but just like this Iowa General Assembly did a few weeks ago, an Article 5 convention would review the rules of previous state conventions, amend and adopt them. Our opponents will say that we're trying to rewrite the Constitution, but where they previously said that Article 5 was too vague, they now overlook that it was very specifically says a convention to propose amendments. This is not a constitutional convention, a con, but an Article 5 convention, a 5-con. And all it can do is propose amendments. And then those amendments have to be ratified by 38 states, where just one chamber in 13 states can stop any amendment. They don't have to vote no. They just don't vote on it at all. And it then becomes dead. Between 1904 and 1979, Iowa passed 9 other resolutions calling for an Article 5 convention. This resolution has already been passed by 19 other states. So I'm asking you on behalf of over 56,000 Iowans who have signed the petition, please vote yes on SJR2.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was all done, sir.
Hi, my name's Rich Hoffmeyer. I am from North Liberty, Iowa, about 100 miles from here. I wanted to show up today in support of my friends here on the Article 5. I got involved about a little over a year ago and read through it, didn't quite understand it, read through it again. I got it. Okay. Seemed like a pretty good idea. I am a veteran, was in the Air Force for 5 years. I have 2 honorable discharges, one from active duty and one from the reserve. I'm really not doing this for myself. I have grandkids in North Liberty. That's why I live there, you know, and they don't have any idea what's going on or why. And so somebody's got to do it for them. They're barely getting through high school. So I stepped up and said, I'll do it. And, you know, I'm the newbie here, so I'm going to be pretty brief. So, but when I look at it, I look at things like the consequences of voting for it and the consequences of voting against it. And one thing I observed is the consequences of voting against it are far greater than voting for it, maybe having a mistake. You know, nothing's perfect, but it always seems to work itself out. That's about it. Anybody got any questions? Passing it on.
So, thank you, senators, for having us time to talk here. My name is John Gruber from Altoona, House District 40. I don't know the Senate, but Mike Pikes. Okay. But I'm here to give you just a quick little bit of homework. If you could pick up your pens, please, senators, and write 38 followed by 12 zeros. Look at it for a minute. That's a big number. We say it and it rolls off the tongue, 38 trillion. rolls off just like that. But you write it out and you see it in front of you, you're like, wow. If you stacked it, if you could actually print a stack of $1 bills and stack it high enough, it would go to the moon and halfway back. Okay. And I'm doing this, like he says, for my kids. Don't have grandkids yet. Hopefully someday. But I'm doing it for them because this has to stop. And the Senate, or excuse me, the Senate and the House up in Washington, especially, I always say whenever we hear them when they first get elected, they say, I'm going to go there and I'm going to cut this and I'm going to slash this and I'm going to make them squeal. Okay. They get up there and my statement is they drink from the Potomac and all of a sudden cut what? Can't cut that. And so I said, there has to be something we do to say, you're going to start doing it this way. Here in Iowa, we got our heads screwed on straight. We got a surplus, you know? And so, and that's a good thing. But I mean, it up there, they could do the same thing. They get rid of, last night I just heard it, $50 million is going for condoms for Gaza. For what? You know, and I said that's just a little eyedropper in the ocean of the spending, but there's a whole bunch of those, and they could get rid of that stuff, and no one's going to miss it. But we have to tell them because it was said originally in the convention, in the Constitutional Convention, they said that if for some reason the federal government becomes too tyrannical, the states have to step in and bring this back under control. And the way they do that is with this amendments convention. And we can say, because the Senate and the House up there, they're not going to say, oh yeah, cut back our time here, cut back our pay. They're not going to do that. But we can say, we're cutting it. And so that's why I say, let's go ahead and approve this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Nathan Hayes. I'm with a group called Article 5 or Iowans for Article 5. We support SJ2, SJR2, excuse me. I'm here to champion the notion that you guys are the last defense. In a republic where money speaks volumes and volumes of it speak to in Washington, the states are the last defense to saving the republic. You know, what is the definition of insanity? Our opposition will tell you, oh, we'll just vote for better people. I've been watching elections for 50 years, and it doesn't matter who you vote for, you get the same results in Washington. It is up to the states to stop this. Some numbers. This is the only thing in the Constitution that all 42 members who attended the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia agreed on, and that was George Mason's notion that you had to provide a route for the states to rein in the power of the federal government, and that was through the amendments process in Article 5. That's the only thing all 42 men agreed on in those 110 days in Philadelphia, besides making George Washington the president of the convention on day number 1 on May 25th. After that, get in front of the microphone, everything escapes you. You sit all day thinking and having it all figured out. And me, what it comes down to, same as the gentleman before, the republic that I'm going to hand my children, my grandchildren, is not as good as the republic that my parents and my grandparents handed down to me. I have an obligation to fight for those values and those morals that the founding fathers hammered out in that Constitution, served 27 years in the military, and understand that there's a duty amongst good Americans that you can't stop until the battle's won. And I would ask the state legislators the same thing. Help us preserve the republic, support this resolution, and pass this resolution on to the next level. Thank you.
Good evening. Quincy Jork from Gladbrook, Tama County. Mr. Chair, fellow senators, I come not to speak for the pros and cons of Article 5, part of the God-inspired governing doctrine, of which you shall hear plenty of both sides. This testimony has not changed for either side since the debate almost began as soon as the ink on the Constitution dried. Please allow me to speak to the record copies of previous Article 5 applications by Iowa legislatures. 1904 and 1909, direct election of senators. 1941, federal taxing power, repeal the 16th Amendment. 1943, limited presidential tenure. 1951, federal taxing power, repeal the 16th Amendment. 1969, apportionment. 1972, revenue sharing. 1979, balanced budget. All but one of these resolutions are active and still in force. See the Article 5 Library of Congress. Let wisdom and fortitude of previous Iowa lawmakers speak to the testimony of Article 5. Congress has usurped state jurisdiction. See Section 1, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution and the 10th Amendment. Even the Iowa Republican Party speaks on these issues in the 2024 platform. Fiscal responsibility, platform principles number 2, government number 4, number 20, size and scope, platform principles number 4, overreach, government number 4, 5, and 11, congressional tenure, government number 9, number 21. I also submit an application made by the state of Indiana, which pertains to rules, voting, records, limitation, and procedural suggestions for the convention for your reference. I urge this governing body to follow the courage and foresight of our founding fathers and previous Iowa legislators to see this Article 5 application through the process that we may, with your resolve and your fortitude, take our country back. I thank you.
Good luck. You're next. Could I? I would like to have that. Thank you.
My name's Jim Walker. I'm from Colo. I actually have 2 new representatives in my district. I have Senator Warmy and Representative Barker. I'm here to speak in favor of this resolution. Our founders gave us 2 methods to propose amendments to the Constitution. Both of them are in Article 5. Congress, by 2/3 of House and Senate, can propose amendments, or the states, by 2/3 of state legislatures, can call for a convention to propose amendments. In either case, 3/4 of state legislatures must ratify in order to make those part of our Constitution. Since our founding, Congress has proposed over 12,000 amendments to our Constitution. No one worries about Congress running away, even though it's obvious that they are. Of those 12,000, only 33 of them reached the threshold of 2/3 of House and Senate, and only 27 of them are in our Constitution. Nothing radical will pass. The bar is too high for anything to get through that you personally don't like. As far as the delegates to this convention, you will not send delegates that you don't trust to follow your rules. Any that step out of line, you will bring them back and replace them. That's your responsibility as senators in this state. I'm going to leave this to you, and I hope that you will consider the fear that's being proposed on the other side, on the opposition side. All it is fear. We have enough reality in our federal government. We don't need make-believe fears.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, my name is Robert Howe. I live in Des Moines. I'm a lifelong resident of the state of Iowa, born just down the street at Mercy Hospital. Grew up in South Central Iowa, raising hogs, corn, cattle, and learned a work ethic that I still hold to this day. I've lived in the state of Iowa my entire life, except for the over 8 years I was in the U.S. Army. I have been to 4 different countries. Never needed a visa. Never needed a passport. So I'm not going to sit here and waste everybody's time and repeating everything that's already been said, everything that's been drawn out, especially everything that Quincy said and the paperwork that you have, Senator. I've read it myself, and it needs to be done. 1904, and it's just set for over 100 years. That's a no-go. That's a non-starter. Something needs to be done, because if we do nothing, everything is going to be gone. For my children, my grandchildren, your potential grandchildren, I'm not going to stand by idly. Because when I swore my oath to the Constitution, when I got out of the military, nobody pulled me to the side and said, here's your unswearing ceremony. So to this day, I still swear by my oath to the Constitution. And with that, I will thank you.
Hello, Senators. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Mike Owen. I'm Deputy Director of Common Good Iowa. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization here in headquartered here in Des Moines. We are against this bill. I would start out by saying thank you, Senator Schultz, for mentioning that this has been going on for many years. You probably have heard my position on this before, our position as an organization. It seems that, with all due respect to the previous speakers, bad ideas do tend to stay around here, and really bad ideas tend to stay around a lot longer. And this is one of them. I mean, I remember I was digging up something I wrote about this just in 2018 when we were talking about this. And really nothing has changed. Again, due respect to the gentleman who compiled a lot of history for you about previous resolutions, that is not the resolution we're talking about here. The one here is very expansive. There is literally nothing, if you look at the wording of this resolution, that could be prohibited from discussion by a convention. The language is so broad. It's to propose amendments to the Constitution that impose fiscal restraints and limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. There are places that may be well intended, and there may be places we don't want that to happen. But the point is that there is nothing that stops consideration of anything really under the sun, under that language. It's extremely broad. So you've got a real Wild West show starting here, and it's been warned about by the likes of Justice Scalia and Chief Justice Berger, both of whom were firmly against this for the very reason that it does pose the possibility of a runaway convention. It's not a good way to set public policy. And I would think that in the current atmosphere, where we have a lot of people who are thumbing their nose at the Constitution right now, we should be concerned about that. Under this convention, you could literally throw out the entire Constitution and replace it with another one. You smile, Senator, but the language allows that. It's not as limited as some of the titles that this gentleman had mentioned on some of these things, like apportionment or something, with very clear, defined issues. This is a different deal, and it's a bad course for the state of Iowa to go down. Thank you for the opportunity to talk. I have to leave to another committee, but I'm going to leave cards. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to.
Yeah, just to be brief. Peter Hurd with the Iowa Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO organization, has been historically opposed to this legislation for the reasons that were stated by my neighbor here from the Common Good Iowa. Oh, I'm sorry. Peter Hurd with the Iowa Federation of Labor, AFL-CIO.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Rosie Thayer, and I hail from Mitchellville, Iowa, and I will not say anything more other than I'm opposed to this, and There are too many unintended consequences that can occur from this. The biggest concern is if you put fiscal restraints on the federal government. I think of our poor folks up in Spencer, Iowa, who pulled a lot of FEMA money. And if that budget is done, what happens? And we have to protect all of the citizens of the state of Iowa and of the country. And I have great fears about proposing amendments that would limit the amount of money that the federal government can spend. Thank you.
Come up here. Senators, thanks for bringing this. Chuck Hurley with the Family Leader. We're registered in support of this because we have confidence that our founders were wise enough to know that a massive centralized government may need restraint by the states. Our view is that the states set up the federal government, not the other way around. And the federal government has proven itself to not restrain itself, especially fiscally. I just looked it up. I think it's $111,000 per person in the United States that is owed just to get us back to even. I have 10 kids, 17 grandkids. That's more than I can handle. And I work pretty hard and I make an okay wage. I don't see how we can keep going this way without a collapse. So I do think that it's high time for the states to try to rein in the federal government. Now, am I 100% confident that there won't be a runaway convention? No, but I do think part of what you can do is you can put the penalties for faithless delegates or faithless electors. You can put the penalty so high that you can probably keep that from happening. So another reason we're supportive of this is that I think that it's good for you to send this on to the full deliberative body. This is a fascinating and important issue. And I think by you allowing it to come out of subcommittee and hopefully out of full committee, we'll get all sides and we'll hear a good debate. And we need a good debate on this. This is a very important, but also fearful issue. There's people with fears. So let's address those fears as well as we can, but then have confidence that this great experiment here in the United States can come back from the brink. Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Pam Taylor, I think we're ready for you.
Thank you. I can hear you now. I would like to echo what Mike Owen had said. And we have great concerns about a rogue convention. It's a real threat to our democracy, to our freedoms, and to the respect for our society. And even though this bill attempts to somewhat control the issues that the delegate from Iowa could consider, there is a real risk once the person gets into the convention. Practically all of our current laws and rights could be under siege by the convention. And our politics have become so divisive that this could be creating even more divisiveness. And so, like I say, I repeat what Mike Owen has said and urge you not to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael, I believe it is next. Please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, before I begin, I just wanted to answer in regards to Judge Scalia. He's always misquoted on this. He was against the Constitutional Convention, which we're all against, but he was for an Article 5 convention. You simply have to go on YouTube, put Scalia 1979, and he gets into this whole process about the Article 5 Convention of States and why he supported it at the time. So my name is Michael Thame, and I'm in support of an Article 5 Convention of States. Currently, the resolution has been passed in 19 states, and the great state of Iowa has the opportunity to become number 20. Of the 27 constitutional amendments that have been ratified, they all needed 75% approval from the states. 75% is the highest threshold in all of US government. Any amendments that are proposed from an Article 5 convention would still need the 75% approval. This is a fact that opponents always fail to mention. Also keep in mind that this convention will be limited to only 3 subjects of discussion, and that any discussion not pertaining to these subjects will be declined. Many of the states that have already passed the application have also made convention laws, making the commissioners the state legislators themselves at the convention. The founding fathers strongly believed in states' rights, and they have it that the state legislators have the most rights more than the federal government because they're the closest connection to the people. The federal government should be acting upon the wishes of the states, not the other way around. The framers knew that Congress may not propose amendments that would go against their own power. This is why they created another method to propose amendments as a check and balance on the federal government. The last time Congress successfully proposed an amendment against themselves was over 230 years ago. Even though all of our constitutional amendments have been proposed by Congress, 17 out of the 33 proposals started with state applications to hold an Article 5 convention. The reason we have our valued and sacred Bill of Rights is due to New York and Virginia initially passing an Article 5 Convention of States application for a Bill of Rights. We need 15 more states to hold the convention, and like many past amendments, Congress may be pressured to act as more states join in, such as Iowa. We need to hold the federal government accountable and to fix our current system. 49 out of 50 state legislatures have balanced budget requirements, and 43 out of 50 have single subject bill requirements in their constitutions. If over 75% have to be accountable to the people, the federal government should be as well. As was said in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. We have an opportunity here to create true change in our national government, and I ask Iowa to be part of that change and support this resolution. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you. That was pretty good. I do see one more. What name is that? It was. Okay. I'm sorry. I can just make it out barely. So, ladies and gentlemen, that finishes up the hands up on the screen. Really, that brings it back to the subcommittee itself. Either of you senators, do you have any thoughts? Would you like to?
Well, thank you, Senator Schultz. Interesting discussion. Like Senator Schultz came up here about the same time, quite a few years ago. And when I was new here, I listened with great interest to this issue. Not really having a firm grasp of it. And over time, it fell out of disfavor for me personally for things that have been mentioned today. I'm not going to recap them. Washington, and I don't dispute or disagree, obviously, with any of the observations that have been made about Washington's inability to control their spending and other bad habits. So that's not the issue. The issue is whether this is the way to fix that. So I have a new job of chairing the state government committee this year. And I told Senator Schultz I would hold this hearing today so we can discuss it a little bit more. You may have heard there's another issue kind of out here called a casino moratorium that's consumed a lot of people's time here the first couple of weeks of the session, but hopefully we'll get that behind us soon. But I will sign the subcommittee report just to continue some conversations about this. I will make no commitment to anyone about whether they'll come out of our committee. I can't speak for the other ones. I haven't taken a position myself. So I do want to thank you for coming and doing your constitutionally protected right to advocate. And I know I've met you before and we've talked before. So thank you for coming.
Senator Blake?
I would say, again, thank you for being here. This is citizens coming to us and sharing your concerns. I think that's absolutely wonderful. And I thank you for being here. And many of the things that here impose fiscal restraints on federal government, term limits, both parties abuse that. Both sides have struggles with that, of people staying too long, overspending. But I do, unfortunately, I am of the opinion, though, that I have a tremendous amount of concerns related to this particular process. I don't know whether this is the correct procedure for making these changes because of the concerns of runaway constitutional convention or Article 5 convention. So at this point in time, I'm not going to sign to move it forward. But thank you all for taking the time and sharing with us with your concerns. Thank you.
All right. Well, this was the best presentation by the pro convention folks. You folks did your research and you brought in a lot of fantastic data. The packet of papers that I was handed here is available. You can have a copy if you like. You can have, we can distribute that. That's not just for me to grab. I'm going to sign it. I mean, there's no bottom end to this, but I have seen over time the three groups that seem to form, and without assigning names to any of them, you've got the ones who have seen so much mismanagement by the federal government. They don't trust them to do anything right, and they think they'll screw this up and steal the convention. You got the folks who believe the founders knew what they were doing, gave us a mechanism, and it's legitimate to use the mechanism, and believe we can control it. And folks who are okay with the things, the federal government doing what it's doing, and don't want to limit it. I mean, so those are the three rough that I've always seen over the years. That hasn't changed. One of my concerns has been, and this is for you to mention to the grassroots for you, that the volume of the push seems to go up and down according to which administration is in office. And that's not right. If the federal government's out of office or out of control, it should be a fever pitch all the time to get some controls on that thing, because you're right. Both parties screw this up. And I've got no faith in a Republican Congress, just like I don't have Democrat Congress. I've seen them all mess it up. So anyway, but because of that, I am of the group that says the founders gave us a mechanism, and I've been reinforced by working our way down the wall here. I appreciate you guys' time. And with that, I'll sign it. We can adjourn the subcommittee, and we'll talk about it in state government. All right. Thank you. Thank
you. Wow, Andrew. If you're just joining us, you have just been watching a subcommittee of our Iowa Senate committee taking public testimony and then voting on our application for an Article 5 convention in Iowa. The vote was 2-1 in favor of passing on this resolution to the full committee. So now it goes to the full Iowa Senate Committee on State Government. Not sure yet exactly when that committee hearing and vote will be, but we'll keep you posted on that as we find out more news. And what a great hearing that was, Andrew. I was really impressed with how many grassroots supporters we were able to get there in such a short period of time.
Yes.
For
Yes. I
those
mean, we heard about this last night.
Yeah. We just found out yesterday that this hearing was happening today. And yet it seemed like we had quite a few supporters in the room. Of course, our very own regional director, Karen Schuster, was there. She did a great job testifying, and so did our other supporters. Our grassroots supporters gave great testimony. And I just have to say, Andrew, I really got a kick out of, first of all, seeing the AFL-CIO come out and be on record as opposing our application. You know, if you've been watching these hearings for a while, you sometimes hear the accusation that we are actually supported by George Soros and a bunch of leftist organizations. No, it's not true. And hearing the AFL-CIO come out in opposition, was interesting. Also, okay, maybe one of my favorite opponents ever was the lady who just came out and said, I oppose this because I don't think there should be any limits on federal spending. What?
Like none, no limits. We're good.
That's what she said. Like, I really appreciate her candor. She was just honest. She wants the federal dollars to keep coming in. And so she doesn't support this. So, Andrew, I think we have Mark Meckler standing
We
by.
do.
Mark, what did you think of what you just saw?
I'll say the same thing I said yesterday, which is I'll never get tired of winning. This is really great. We got a streak running here. I would say the most important thing is what you guys said. We didn't know about this hearing until very short notice, and yet we still had a bunch of grassroots there. I also love what the chairman said, that, the push for this should be equal regardless of whether we have a Democrat or Republican administration. I agree with that as well. So I'm just excited to see we're going on to the full hearing, the full committee.
That's right. And, I was also excited to see the family leader as an organization there testify in support. That was big. I didn't know they were planning. We knew that they support Convention of States, but I don't know that they've ever testified in support before. So that was really encouraging to see. And, yeah, it was great. I love Karen Schuster in her testimony. She talked about, she warned the subcommittee, you're going to hear the 3 R's of the opposition: runaway, rules, and rewrite. So I love that Karen has it, summarized in the 3 R's, and she kind of went through and just prepared those subcommittee members in advance for that. And it was a successful hearing. Andrew, any other thoughts, comments?
Yeah, there was a couple comments that I just loved from our grassroots. One gentleman said that it's our obligation to fight for the Republic, and he said that's why he was there testifying in favor of the resolution. I love that. I heard another guy talk about the 12,000 amendment ideas that Congress has submitted, and how only 27 have been passed and are ratified and part of our Constitution. And he just completely obliterates the idea that these bad amendments are going to work their way through a convention and then we're going to have a complete rewrite. Well, if that's the case, why has Congress not passed its pipe dream goals yet? Is because it can't get ratified. It takes 38 states to ratify any amendment. So the chances of some bad amendment coming out of a convention, the big old goose egg right there, it's 0% chance of that. So I loved that. And the last one, one gentleman, he commented on Field of Dreams: if you build it, they will come. I just love that, because you know what we're doing, Rita? We're building a grassroots army in every single legislative district in the country, and people are coming. They're signing on board, and they are getting involved. And we're going to get there because of the people that are building the grassroots movement right in their communities. So I think it was a great hearing.
And Andrew, speaking of people who are building the grassroots right in their communities, I think we have Karen Schuster ready to join us. Karen, you gave great testimony. We loved hearing you. We were cheering for you. You were so professional, so poised, so organized, as was the rest of the team there. Congratulations on this victory. And what were your thoughts about the hearing today?
Well, thank you, Rita. It was a lot of supporters showed up, so that was really encouraging. We weren't sure who all was going to be able to show up because it was so last minute. We just received word late yesterday that it was going to be today. So very exciting. And we are ready to get on to the next step. And we know we've got work to do here, but we're ready to move on and continue working to get this passed out of our Senate committee's next step.
Yeah. Well, I know you're working hard, Karen, and we just thought you did an amazing job. We were really impressed with how many people you were able to get there, like you said, on such short notice. And I bet a lot of other people reached out to their subcommittee members and submitted testimony online. So what's the next step for the team?
Well, the next step is that we have a deadline of getting out of the Senate committee by, I believe it's March 7. We also are hoping to get the House version out of our legislative services at some point, and we're waiting on getting a number for that because we'd like to go through both chambers concurrently.
Yep. That sounds great. Well, Karen, we're going to let you get back to work. I know you've got legislators to meet with and people to talk to. So thanks for joining us. And again, congratulations. Please let our grassroots team there know how proud we are of them.
I will. Thank you, Rita.
Mark, you have any parting shots before we close out?
Yeah, look, I want to congratulate Karen, and I want people to understand that the people mostly who work for Convention of States came up through the grassroots. That was Karen. She was a grassroots volunteer. She was our state director there, now regional director. This happens because talent rises to the top, and this is a meritocracy. And President Trump's trying to restore a meritocracy in the United States of America. That's what Convention of States is. That's why you see the people testifying. They're so good. They've risen on their own merit. They care. They're passionate. They do their investigation. They prepare for testimony. They do an incredible job. That's why they get the votes, and that's why we're going to win.
Love that. Well, we've had a crazy week, and we're still not even done. We have another hearing coming up this Friday, Rita. Mark, I hope we get to have you back on for some more winning in New Hampshire. Sorry, I don't know if I said Iowa, in New Hampshire. So we hopefully we'll have you back on, and the winning streak will continue. So that's coming up this Friday, and I want to say it's 9:30 p.m. Eastern time that hearing is going to be airing.
Wait, 9:45 a.m. not p.m.
Oh, sorry, p.m. I'm sorry.
That's past my bedtime.
Yeah, wait. You'll be a pumpkin at that point, Rita.
Yes.
So 9:45 a.m. Eastern time this coming Friday. So thank you everyone for joining this special edition of COS Live. Again, we passed out of the subcommittee 2-1. Now it's on to a full committee vote. So we'll be back when we have another full committee vote. Until then, we got a country to save, guys. So it's time for us to get back to work. Thanks for joining.